Welcome back to video 2 in my guide to reverse stamping. I'm Jamie with Self-Made Manicure, and I'm going to show you in this one how to stamp a clear outline. I've set up some of my little fingernails here because I've got so much stuff on mine. It's not going to be easy to go over the top of that. But what we're talking about is how to get really clear images, especially so that that line around the edge shows up and pops. And this topic covers a bit of the practical consideration of the technique and the method of actually, scraping and stamping. But it also gets into which polishes we're using and a teensy little bit of color theory. So I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison for you. I said in my last video about the essential tools that I highly recommend that you use Maniology Stamper versus like the Beauty Big Bang one. This was a cheaper one that I got, and I'm going to show you the difference between that and really like why I think that using Maniology products does definitely make a difference. It just makes everything look better later, even though it might seem like, yeah, it's really expensive and why would you want to spend that money if you didn't have to? Okay, well, we can get into that. All right, so I'm going to use part of the same one that I used here. I think that this is just a great example because it is so intricate. And I'm going to pick this part of the design here. All right, let's use the Maniology one there. All right. I didn't say it, but if you don't know this from somebody, when these come, they have a blue protective plastic film on top, and some companies may have a clear protective film. You must remove the clear film so that the grooves in the etching can fill up with nail polish. Otherwise, it won't work. All right. Let's try the same thing here with the Beauty Big Bang. I'm going to use the Maniology. If you're doing multiple things, let that acetone dry because that'll make you frustrated too. Oops. Okay. That's the difference. I mean, yeah, look at the difference just with using the stamper. Okay, so number one tip for getting a clear outline is use quality stampers because it makes a really big difference. The one in my right hand is the Maniology Ice Cube. The one in my left hand is the super cheap Beauty Big Bang. I used the same stamping polish for both of those. So it just doesn't behave the same. You want to make sure that you've got a really good surface for that. I don't wash my stamps very often. Maybe you can tell. They're not that clean looking, but they work really well. It doesn't really matter. Normally after I take this off or, if I transfer it and there's any left on there, I just use Scotch tape and I just remove the image like that. Okay. So we aren't gonna waste our time with the ultra cheap Beauty Big Bang thing because it's not gonna give us good results. I have retired some of these to be used for chrome powder because that would be good. The powder can mash up the silicone, but anyway, we're just gonna put that over on the side because nobody cares about that one. All right, okay, so on with this again. So to get a clear outline, you wanna make sure that you start with a really nice clean plate. And I'll rotate and turn my cotton ball so that what I've got is clean. And when it's clean, it's gonna look pretty much just silver like that, and you want it to be clean. If you have any nail polish that is dried in any of those spots, when you come in with this and go over it, it's gonna repel the polish because it's dry, and then it's not gonna look the same. All right. Okay. So that is super important. Now, the other thing that's going to help you get a really clear outline is having high contrast. So if we check out what this looks like here, And in this video, we're not going into detail about how to transfer it. That'll be a future one, so don't worry about that. But just notice at this point what the colors look like and how that really pops. All right. Now, like I said, if we need to clean that off, we can. Okay. I am not done with this little piece of tape, so I'm just going to stick it here. I usually put the one that I'm using just like on the top of something there. All right. Let's take a look at what happens if we change the color and use something like, you know, when I was starting out with stamping, I was like, oh, I want 1,000,000 colors. So I went on Amazon and I bought one of those Born Pretty 24 packs. And it's okay, but, you know, may not be like exactly the same. What's the difference? Again, we're gonna let that dry. Put this here. All right, let's say you really wanna do some green over the top of that. Okay, so there is the Born Pretty. Side by side with a green one, you'd be able to tell that it's not going to be quite as opaque. Born Pretty polishes are okay. Oops. Okay. I just feel like when I really want it to be like super good, I use the Maniology ones. All right, so here's the difference. Oh, let me get the orientation the same so that it's gonna look kind of similar. All right. Okay. So the color, you know, that you're gonna pick for this obviously is gonna make a big difference in terms of the finished product. I, as a habit, usually go with a dark color as my outline. As opposed to a color. It really changes the effect a lot when you do the outline in a color. I find that, you know, just with the way that our eye reads images out of, you know, coloring books, stories, art, you know, any of those kinds of things, having an outline that is black or dark really helps define the edges of that image so much more. And sometimes it can be difficult to tell what the item or the object is when it's outlined in, you know, a color. So I am pretty partial to that. But of course, one of the awesome things about this is that you can really let your imagination run wild. So depending on the effect that you want, you can do that, of course. All right, the other consideration that I wanted to show you here is what happens if you pick a stamping polish color that's too close to the color of your nail. You know, you need to make sure that you've got the right amount of contrast. Again, it influences how your eye can read it. So here we're going to use a Maniology Shangri-La. I love this color. It's like a dusty green, sage teal, sort of like moody. I just love it. Anyway, but despite the fact that I love it, I might not want to do an outline on it. So here you can see that over the wrong color, when I say the wrong color, I just mean that like if it's too close, right? See there, okay, we've got that. Versus, let's put the same color over white. Oops. Okay. If you're wondering why I don't need to use sticky base coat on these, it's because I just painted these nails and they're still a little bit tacky. Okay. There you go. Where is the outline? You really can't see it over there. Here you can. Like I said, I'm super partial to doing things with black because I find that they just have really excellent edges and boundaries. You can just see so much better with that. But if you find that that's too harsh, if you want a little bit of a softer definition, then some other really, really good ones to go for are like Maniology Boba, or there's also some fun ones. This is Raven, which just came out with the Halloween box. So any kind of darker color like that is gonna give you some more definition. It is possible Maniology also has some sheer ones like this. This is leather, which is a sheared jelly cherry. Oh my God, I love this color. I love it. But if I was doing an outline for reverse stamping, I don't know. I'd really have to choose if I was going to use this one. I mean, I do use it in my reverse stamping, but I might not use it as the outline necessarily, just because, again, I think that it can make it hard to read what the image is. Not that I don't love this, because I seriously do. It's so delicious. It's just so beautiful. It just reminds me of like summer cherries. That's the feeling that I get from that. Okay. Anyway. Right. Okay. So there's a bit of an overview and what to think about with the outline. I think higher contrast usually is going to lead to a lot more happiness later on. And what I often do when I'm planning these kinds of things out, like before I did this particular set, I played around a lot with different background colors. These are actually the ones that I was practicing with. And here you can see that I was doing some tests and I was figuring out, you know, what kind of effect I wanted. If I wanted that kind of lighter, or if I wanted this more mid-tone. You know, this one I did without white polish underneath the blue, and so it doesn't have that same kind of brightness that I was able to get over here because I played around with it more. So I would suggest that if you really want to get into it, do that kind of experimentation, because there are people who are like, oh, they just wing it in the middle. But I think that honestly, if you want it to have that kind of like stunning quality at the end of it, that things come together the way that you want. There's a lot of like questions in my mind that I have where if I'm in the middle of trying to do a manicure and I'm thinking about all these things, I'm like, oh, what if I do this or that, you know, and okay, yeah, you start to follow it down that road. And then actually it turns out not to be like that great of an idea. I was like, I should put glitter on it. Yeah. Okay. So I did. And it's like not working out, you know, and if I had done that on my actual nails, it just wouldn't have come out the same way. So I think it's really important to go through some of those possibilities before you get to the point of, you know, actually like committing to a whole thing, because it can take a couple of hours to do a set like that. And so if you're the kind of person like me, you get in a bad mood if it doesn't come out the way that you want it to be. So that planning aspect can just really save you a lot of time, and be sure that you're going to have something that you're going to like, so that you can check it out and see what it's going to look like with those different possibilities, you know? So I think putting the time and the effort into that pays off in the end. And it's not something that I've ever been, you know, sorry that I put that time into doing some of that planning. Definitely consider what the background color is going to be, because that's for sure going to impact your outline. But I hope that this has been a useful demonstration, at least to help you get on board with the goodness that is the Maniology Ice Cube Stamper. And, you know, even though it may seem like you're going to save money from some of those really cheap stamps that you can get from cheap websites, you know, side by side, they're not as good. Okay. Thanks. And in the next video, we are going to go into how to fill in a design.